Hey everyone, it's Kathya. Thanks for joining me. Today I have 3 hacks that I wanted to share with you, 3 additional ones, and I want you to stick around to the end because the last one's truly my favorite and I think you guys are going to love it. Now, I know there are a lot of products on the market that help you spread your embossing paste and mediums, but I don't have one. And like everyone else, I have been using a palette knife or an old gift card to spread the product. But I wanted something larger that would cover my entire card panel. Then one night as I was crafting, I had this light bulb moment, and I seem to have a lot of those lately, I know. And I thought I would try my idea to see if it worked, and it did. So I'm calling this the DIY Stencil Applicator. And all I did was take a 6x6 piece of paper and I adhered it to a thicker piece of cardstock and I laminated it. And I'm using the bottom sealed portion of it to use as a stencil applicator to apply mediums, that sort of thing. And as you can see right here, it works perfectly. Now, just like any type of product, when you have a thick medium paste, you want to wipe it off gently with either a wet paper towel or even a baby wipe would work. Now, I wanted mine rounded just so it'd be a little bit easier to handle, but you could just even do a complete square, 6x6 or as large as you wanted, and just laminate it. But I wanted to demonstrate here how well this product works and how easy it is to get really great results just making your own. So there you have it, great application, and the DIY stencil applicator works great. Now, this next hack came to me as I was experimenting with a particular item that most of us have in our craft room. So I'm not going to make a card with the images that you see here on the screen with the leaves and the flower. This is just to demonstrate my idea and how it came to fruition. So I wanted to show it to you. So I'm randomly stamping this green leaf pattern around this little flower, and I'm using both green and orange to create this. So, did you know you can actually foil with craft paint? Yes, it is possible. I have tried it, I've experimented, and just by using standard, everyday, inexpensive craft paints, you can do some accent foiling with your inexpensive craft paint. So let me clarify. When I say craft paint, I actually mean acrylic. If you are working with another type of paint, I don't know if it works because I don't have that, but feel free to give it a try and experiment to see if it works for you too. So the reason I think this works so well is because acrylic craft paint has binders in it. And when those binders are dry and you apply heat to them, they become sticky and they'll allow your foil to stick to it. Now this part's pretty important. Use the paint straight out of the container. Do not dilute it with water, otherwise you won't have enough binder on the surface of your project for your foil sheets to adhere to. So as I showed you, I just spread some black craft paint directly onto the work surface there, stamped a photopolymer stamp in it, stamped right in the center of that flower, lifted it up and wiped it off with a damp paper towel, and no mess or harm to my photopolymer stamp, just perfectly fine. So as long as you have either wet baby wipes or a paper towel with a little bit of a water mister and to work with this craft paint pretty quickly, you're going to be just fine and no harm will come to your stamps. Now, my original experiment, I used all straight black on the project because I thought everything would foil, but that's not the case because in some cases where you run your brush across the project, naturally the most application of your paint is when you first lay the paint down, but when you run it across the project and you spread it out, it becomes thinner towards the tip. And those are the parts that are not going to get foiled very well. And that's the reason I'm actually using complementary colors for my design project. So I'm using green paint for the green stamped leaves and orange paint for the orange stamped petals. Now that orange paint I will show you towards the end, I didn't mix it very well, so it's not going to foil very well, but the rest of the project works out pretty well. And you'll see as the paint gets a little thinner towards the tips, you'll notice that those don't foil very well either. But for a loose application and just accents, this is a pretty fabulous idea. So here's my final card panel and all the paint is on there, and then I waited till it was completely dry. And you want to do this because you want to make sure you don't smear that paint, and when the paint is wet and thicker in places, it will smush down and ruin your project if that's not the look you're going for. So I ran this through my laminator and I sped this part up just so that we could kind of go through this part pretty quickly, and then I'm going to slow it down and you can see this has really cool results at the very end. So as you can see, the orange petals didn't come out very well, but where the paint was really thick in the veins of the leaves, those turned out great. But look at the tip ends of those portions there on the green paint. It didn't work out perfectly, but this is a great way to add accents if you want just small little touches in random spots. Okay, I think this next tack is my final and it is one of my favorites, so I saved it for last. Today I'm going to show you a way to be able to have a glossy sheen on your die cuts or stamped cut and cut images or even your sentiment strips. So I'm going to refer to this as faux clear embossing, and you are going to love this and flip out when I show you what I did here. So I'm basically taking a piece of cardstock, running some adhesive on the back, and I'm using a leftover piece of release paper, and I'm going to adhere that heart onto the die cut, but not before I put this on there. This is clear packing tape. Now, I don't know why I didn't think of this before, but there are so many times where I want to give a card to someone and I love the look of either glossy accents or crystal glaze on my projects or on those die cuts, but I have to wait for it to dry so that before I can drop it in the mail. But this way, if you use a piece of clear packing tape and you run your die cut on top of a piece of paper with some release paper on the back, you will have a perfectly shaped image that is completely glossy just by using that packing tape. So I'm going to show you on this solid image here because this also works on intricate die cuts, and I'll show you a couple of examples here as well. So the packing tape that I used in this video is 1.8 inches wide and 48 millimeters wide for those of you in Europe. And this worked perfectly for the smaller die cuts. And if you go online, you will see packing tapes that come in wider widths. I've seen some as wide as 4 inches, believe it or not. So you can use that as an option as well. So as you can see, I have a sort of like an instant sticker with a glossy surface, and I love that I can take off that release paper, put it on my project, and stick it down on my card without having to worry about waiting for anything to dry. So here's an example of one I did with die cuts using a napkin, and did the die cut out of letters from Altenew to spell the word mom. And I love how that turned out. And if you're interested, let me know. I will show you how I did the napkin technique because that's a little bit tricky, but it turned out well. And I love how glossy those letters look on that cardstock. So again, I'm demonstrating this. When you take the piece of packing tape, you want to make sure that you bow it in the middle to make sure that it has a really nice flat surface so you don't get the buckles in the tape. And I'm just placing this hugs die on top of my little die cut machine and running it through, and apologies for the camera shaking here again. I ran it through maybe a couple, 3 times just to make sure that I cut that surface really well because this packing tape is pretty strong, but I think even the thinner types of packing tape that you get on the market would work really well for this example as well. So I'm pulling off the die cut here and you can see it left the release paper behind, but when I put this die cut that is completely finished now with all those pieces cut out against a white piece of paper, it is an instant sticker. And I will slow it down here so that you can see. Sorry, I'm going so fast here, but you can see when I tilt it in the light, it has perfect dimension. It's shiny and it's a sticker and it's glossy and I think it looks beautiful. So off camera, I created these 3 sentiments just in time for Mother's Day as well using the faux clear embossing technique. I'd love to know what your favorites of all these hacks were. Leave me a comment in the section below, let me know, and I will catch you next time. Ciao for now.